1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, contrary to popular belief, things can get worse. And if opening opposition is correct, that the far conservative, far right, and far radicalized TERFs are as crazy as you portray them to be in terms of their very perverse opinions, rigid stances, and harsh ideologies towards trans women, who on all sides of this debate, to be charitable, we agree are women, then not having visibility or oversight under the banner or under the sphere of influence of the feminist movement, both as a community and as a bastion of support for women regardless of their sexual orientation or identity, and even if they have intersectionality towards being trans or intersectionality towards being strongly conservative or radical, is something that is harmful. Because if we don't have an ability to reach them, if we push them out and we ultimately portray them as an enemy of the feminist movement or someone who is not a part of you, just like what my partner mentioned, it's not just you radicalize them even further, but they're likely to be able to spread and take that ideology elsewhere, and the feminist movement loses out on the opportunity to be able to correct. They lose out on the opportunity to be able to speak, and they lose out on the opportunity to be able to influence them. The particular delta or the nuance to being able to call them out under the feminist movement as opposed to them being outside of that is being able to rally the movement as a whole and rally individual people to be able to tell them that they are wrong and that they need to be able to understand that trans women are women. When they are part of this, it becomes easier to be able to call them out, and the discourse that my partner talked about is likely and more genuine to happen organically when they literally are exposed to more women and more touch points, again, as a collective and as individual people. I have a comparative intuition pump and demonstration. Decades ago, women who work in the sexual profession as sex workers or directors for pornographic material were largely deemed as not part of the movement. They were seen as people who were overly radical. They were seen as people who were overly conservative. But these things can evolve and change over time, wherein the definition of these particular people evolves to the extent and evolves to the impact that these women are now being empowered. And if we were so easy to disassociate or cast away those particular women who were conservative, who had that ultra biased lens, like what my partner mentioned, for things likely outside their control, like their religion, like their culture, like their history, then the feminist movement wouldn't be as intersectional or wouldn't be as strong as it is now in its ability to truly be able to evolve and call it out. I'm not saying that in the future it's gonna be fine to dunk on these trans women and say that they don't have rights and say that they don't belong. But we need to be able to not have an ad hominem and general approach towards these groups of people, but being able to, as what my partner mentioned, be able to communicate and strategically, specifically target the centrist or moderate TERFs who have an ability to be saved, who are one decent debate or decent empathetic discussion to be able to understand their worldview in order to validate not the harm of what they do, but validate where they come from. So we can understand why they see it this way, and we can ultimately be able to reach a truth that can actually evolve and improve what it means to be a TERF. And that's the nuance to this debate, right? We already treat this like a pejorative label. The same way we used to call people or women who were far liberal as whores and sluts in the ability for them to exercise their sexual identity and right to bodily autonomy. I think we live in a free world, and in a proliferation of these particular ideologies, the strategy is simple. This debate is not about whether it's justified to be harmful to these trans people or not. This debate is uniquely about strategy. This debate is about where we can effectively be able to have a sphere of influence that can reach them, to be able to call them out and say that they are wrong, and there's a mutual sense of accountability. Because if these particular people are disassociated, it becomes quicker and easier for the feminist movement to wash their hands clean and say, we got rid of the problem, it's their fault, anything that happens outside that, and the other people who they now influence, it's now their fault. We pass on the blame. It becomes a blame game, and it's a poor strategy to truly arrive at what the feminist movement really wants, which is to be able to further these particular strands and be able to uphold intersectionality in as much as that is idealistic, in as much as that is difficult. Because we on Opening Government understand that things will not always be perfect. In as much as you try to have more intersectionality, the likelihood for conflict, the likelihood for tension, and the likelihood for these painful and challenging conversations to happen. Just like any friend group or any family, you can all love and care about each other. But in the instances that matter the most, where you have to call people out and real talk them and be able to tell them that they are wrong because you love and care about these particular people and you want what's best for them and you also want what's best for the community and for the family, is something the feminist movement has to seriously consider. This debate is specifically about the lens of disassociation and the way that it becomes perverse and a way that it boxes out the ideologies of these women. In as much as it might be flawed, in as much as it might be biased, these things can still change, minds can change, and if that is the margin that we're willing to defend, in as much as it might not be a lot, I do recognize that maybe majority of TERFs might not have their minds changed. If there are a few who can, then we think we've done our job. We are very proud to stand on side proposition.